All right, so summer kicked in 5 days ago, but summer injury season is also well underway with kids out of school and people taking summer vacations. The ER rooms of local hospitals are getting busy.
Yep, and that's why we have invited today Dr. Gabe Campion. He's the emergency room physician at Dignity Health Northridge Hospital Medical Center to talk about the most common summer injuries and what we can do to prevent them. Love that you're here. Thanks for giving us some tips. We're going to start all this hot temperature. It's not super hot today, but when hot temps happen, one of the big problems is a heat stroke. Can we talk about some of the symptoms and tips to help people?
Absolutely, and Lou and Glenn, thank you very much for having me here today.
Of course.
So heat injuries going all the way up to heat stroke can really creep up on people, and as the summer gets hotter, it's really something to keep an eye out. When the temperatures get hot and people are outside enjoying themselves or working, the longer you're out there, especially in the hot sun, the more you're at risk for developing a heat injury. First, you might have heat cramps where you're having your muscles are cramping up. You can have a stomach ache. You can feel nausea. And that can move on to heat exhaustion, where you start to feel like you might faint. Your heart might be racing. People can look flush when they have this, and that's really the sign to get out of the sun, get into some shade, air conditioning if you can, have some cool water or a sports drink. But if it keeps on getting worse, you can move on to heat stroke. And that can be a medical emergency where you often need to come to the emergency department for help. That's where someone can pass out, they can have a seizure. It can be a very life-threatening injury because their body temperature gets up to very unsafe levels.
I feel like we saw a baseball player just recently had like a little bit of a heat exhaustion stroke
got a little
last
woozy.
week. Yeah.
All right, so obviously a lot of people, to beat the heat, they hop in the pool, hop in a lake, but besides drowning, there are other injuries that can occur in the water.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the injuries that we'll sometimes see is if someone's diving into some shallow water or diving into the ocean, they can get an injury to their neck. So one of the things we recommend is being careful. If you're going to be diving into a pool, you need to make sure it's a safe area that's deep enough. Public pools should have it marked off. From the ocean, I'd recommend against diving into waves because people can get an injury, even just shallow water right there at the shore. Now, you mentioned drowning, and even if people don't drown, they can still get injuries when they're in the pool, particularly young kids. If kids are playing around and maybe they're not as good swimmers, or if they're dunked, they can breathe in a little bit of water, and you can have something that can be near drowning. Sometimes the water will go down into their lungs or around their throat, and they'll feel a little bit short of breath, and that can actually continue a little bit. We actually recommend in that case that you come to see us to get checked out because we'll need to watch people for a few hours afterwards, make sure they're doing okay.
Yeah.
One of the most feared complications is that when someone has an episode where they've breathed in a little bit of water, that just becomes worse and worse. And that's something that I'd caution parents about, that if your child does breathe in a little bit of water, they're not doing okay right away, go have them get some medical attention. One of the things I actually recommend to help avoid these situations is if you have a pool at home, there's a couple safety tips I'd recommend to keep your children safe. One is to have the pool at home fenced in and a gate on it. That can help prevent a lot of the injuries that we see in kids. And unfortunately, every single year out here in California, at the emergency department, we'll see children who have drowned, which is very unfortunate. But having a gate, having a fence, that can help prevent people who are under 4 from drowning almost entirely. And having adults out there who are keeping an eye on kids, that can help a lot of the drownings, prevent a lot of them too.
All right, let's talk about grilling. We might be at the pool, but we're going to be grilling, and sometimes people get food poisoning.
Yep, I see that a lot too.
Yeah.
So everybody's out there having a good time, grilling up some hamburgers, hot dogs. The big thing I recommend about this is that when you're taking your raw food and you're putting it on the grill, you're taking it from that tray, you're using these utensils. After it's cooked, people sometimes use that same tray or the same utensils with your nice cooked food, and then it gets contaminated with that raw juices on everything, and it really takes what could be a good time, and you end up having a line to the bathroom, everybody's miserable.
Yeah.
So recommend keeping clean, cooked stuff on everything clean, your raw plates and utensils separately. Other things I recommend is if the food has been out for a while, you really don't want to eat food that's been sitting out for more than an hour or two. Cool food you should keep cool. Your chicken salad, macaroni salad, you want to keep that on ice if you can or in the cooler. The hot food, the stuff you cooked up, try and keep that hot, because if you keep it out at room temperature, it can go bad pretty quickly.
All right, real quick, July 4th coming up. Talk about fireworks safety.
Absolutely. So with fireworks, this is one of the most feared times, I hate to say, for the emergency department, because right around July 4th, everybody has their fireworks that they may be using if they're somewhere that they can use it. But My recommendation, if you are going to use your own fireworks in an area that is legal to do so, don't hold on to the fireworks that you're going to light, because every year I see people who have just terrible injuries to their hands and their faces. Should be lit by adults and one at a time, and please do not hold in your hands when you're lighting them.
Or don't do it at all.
Or don't do it at all.
Yeah, exactly. All right, great to see you. Impressed with what you do with emergency room doctor. It's pretty incredible. Thank you, Dr. Campion.
Thank you very much for having me here.
All right, good information. You cannot hear it enough. So everybody have a safe summer. For more information on Dr. Campion, you can log on to dignityhealth.org.